Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight for another Green Living Seminar presentation. I'm Dr. Elena Traister in the Environmental Studies Department here at MCLA, the Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts. Our Green Living Seminar this semester focuses on the theme nature and spirituality. All of these presentations are free and open to the public. They take place here in the Feigenbaum Center for Science and Innovation, room 121, on Wednesdays at 5:30. You can check out our website at www.mcla.edu/greenliving. There's a schedule of upcoming talks. You can also see the link to our YouTube channel and find recordings of all of our previous presentations. Our presentation will last about 45 minutes, and there will be some opportunities to ask questions, so please do. Before I introduce our speaker tonight, I want to make a quick announcement for next week's presentation and hope you all come back again on Wednesday next week. Dr. Alex Desherbinen is the Director and Senior Research Scientist with Columbia Climate School's Center for Integrated Earth System Information. Will present a talk titled How Religion Influences Our Relationship with the Environment. Today's presentation, titled Mindful Birding and the Science of Awe, will be given by Dave Edson. Dave is a multidisciplinary birder with an extensive background in theater, music, education, and the great outdoors. He's taught in school for over 20 years. He has been a consultant for outdoor organizations working to make their missions more diverse, equitable, accessible, and inclusive. He's performed locally, regionally, and internationally, and he has facilitated birding outings in the Berkshires with many local organizations. We're so happy to have you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Hello, nerds. I mean that in the best possible way, I hope you know. It's an honor to be here and to talk about one of my favorite things in the world, mindful birding. I'm going to share some ways that I understand this, and the caveat is that there is no one way to bird. There's no one way to be outdoors or anything like that. So take what serves you, adapt what you need, and discard what doesn't make any sense to you. I will definitely leave some time for questions at the end, but if I'm saying something and you're just like, what? You can ask me, because I do want to make this clear, and my hope is that we're going to kind of go on a journey and start really in and go way out and then come right back to our hearts, all right? Does anyone know what kind of bird this is? Junco. Yes. What kind of junco? Dark-eyed junco. Excellent. So I put this on the first page for a number of reasons. One of them is just to remind me of our backyard friends. Sometimes birding can get really wild with twitchers and chasing rare birds. I was just telling our friends here on the way up, I stopped in Cheshire at the causeway that goes east-west, and there was 130 mallards, 1 Canada goose, and 3 birds that I got flagged on eBird. And that, if you don't know what that means, it's basically like, prove it, right? And I don't even have a camera other than my phone. Luckily, at least a couple of the birds have been spotted recently by others, so I can say, hey, I'm just continuing on. But I did manage to get a picture of one of them. And just for fun, it was a northern pintail, a female common goldeneye, and a female lesser scaup. Those 3 are typically not there right now. So that's fun. And I'm going to talk about, with those rarer birds, I think how we can take a mindful approach to that too. In terms of mindfulness, there's a lot of ways that we might have been introduced to this word or the practices associated with it. Practice is a key word, like if you do yoga or meditation, every time you return to the mat, it's as if you're doing it for the first time. Every time you take a breath in and you're meditating, it's like you're starting all over. So I think for mindful birding, it's kind of like that too. And sometimes you just got to come back to the dark-eyed junco. By a show of hands, how many of you, even if you didn't know what this was, have seen a bird like this outside, especially lately? They're a winter sparrow. They're everywhere right now. They're along the sides of the roads. When you're driving, they'll just flutter away. Oops, sorry. And with mindful birding, sometimes not skipping over our backyard friends is the way to go. I'm going to talk about that and a lot of other things as we go along. By the way, none of these pictures are mine. Most all of them are from All About Birds, so you can find these pictures also. So this was the sort of no small task subtitle of this presentation, Improving Our Health and Saving the Planet. No problem, right? So I just want to say that if anyone deals with anxiety at any level like I do, I see you. You have a heart. You care about things. We don't get anxious about things that we don't care about, and there's a lot to care about in this world. Nature, endlessly healing. I do not, for the record, recommend not going to the doctor. You should go to the doctor, take your medicine, all that stuff, get your shots, but also combining that with going out in nature, as some countries are literally prescribing. Maybe you've heard of forest bathing. Doctors in Japan will literally prescribe for someone to go outside. Our Western medicine is not quite catching up to that, but it's like science is slowly going, wait a minute, we actually have data on being outside and being in the presence of birds and what that can actually do to our bodies and our minds. A theme for this presentation I want you to keep remembering is reciprocity. So it's a give and take relationship. We live very much in a society that is a consumer society. We take. We're ordering on this and that. But when we're living in harmony with nature, and birds can remind us of this really easily, like put out a bird feeder. You give the birds something, they give you something back. That's a simple way to do that. But you can't keep them up for long because you know who's going to wake up, right? Black bears. And they will eat anything because they are hungry right now. So, birding is awesome, literally. There are two words that have been either overused or turned upside down on this slide. As a Gen X child of the 80s, the word awesome was used all the time, and I still use it probably every day. Like, these French fries are awesome, right? But if we look at the definition of the word, not quite so sure, but we exaggerate to make a point. The word literally, sometimes now in the dictionary, is defined as figuratively. So, birding, though, is literally awesome, and we're going to talk about what that means. So, as mentioned, I'm a multidisciplinary birder. I hope, especially for the students, but also the other adult lifelong learners in here, that you do other things besides whatever you're currently studying or majoring in. That is my opinion. I had a professor in college when I was a theater major, and he was like, you shouldn't do anything else. It's too hard, right? So I made that sacrifice. I was a music minor too. I always loved animals and the outdoors. I think being a multidisciplinary birder makes me a better birder, and I'm really interested in people who have a variety of backgrounds. I play the guitar. I'm an actor. I used to teach science too. Remember the pandemic and teaching science? I took this because it was a moment in the middle of it all where finally we had received some equipment to do some lab work, and I was like, here we are in our masks and our goggles and whatever, and I'm like, finally we're like in the room together and we're moving around, and I just wanted to commemorate that. As mentioned, I've also worked with organizations to make the outdoors more accessible for everyone, and that's another theme of today. The outdoors is for everyone, and there's no one way to experience it. So, yeah, this is me in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware when I was a kid, and the first thing I would do when I would come to the beach was I would run in circles as tightly as I could without falling down in towards the circle. So I think I was studying centrifugal force and I didn't know it. But I loved going to the ocean, and I remember hearing northern bob whites in the summer in Delaware. They're the ones that say their name. They go like that. They're not really around here so much anymore. They're in decline. But that's a memory I have of what some people might call a spark bird. I'm going to talk about that too. I don't have one spark bird. I have several for different periods of my life. This is me actually being paid to do a theater gig in Colorado, but we went out hiking every week, camping. This is Cape Cod last summer, and this is me on one of my mindful birding outings. I specifically don't call them walks because sometimes we have people who can't walk who go on these things. I specifically don't call it bird watching because there are blind birders. So I call it birding, and I'm still looking for the right word. Birding outings, excursion, adventure, something like that. So yeah, every superhero has an origin story, right? One day, I was browsing in my Sibley East guide. This is a really well-known bird guide if you're not familiar. And I was looking specifically at birds who don't live right here. And I came across the red-throated loon, second from the right. And something jumped off the page for me. I was really struck by this bird. And it shows it in its breeding plumage and its winter non-breeding plumage, and it shows where it is. And I just had this sort of feeling of longing, like I'm so grateful and so glad that this bird exists on the same planet as me, but alas, I'll probably never see one. 2 days later, I was in a birding program, and across the state in Massachusetts along the water, and our birding guide said, there's a red-throated loon in the scope, in the telescope, and I was like freaking out. And I saw it for 1 second, and it was so far away, so small. But my heart, you know, when the Grinch turned good and his heart busted, that's what it was like. And for 4 days, I was elated, and I actually didn't entirely know why. And I was going for a jog, so now I have a runner's high on top of my leftover bird high. This is like 3 days later. And the guest of the podcast I was listening to was talking about awe. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the feeling. That's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling awe. How can I get more of this? And if you don't know, you should know. The world should know. I wanted to share this with as many people as possible. So this is a red-throated loon. Is it not gorgeous? I mean, come on. Now, this is the breeding plumage. So if you saw one of these off the coast of Massachusetts, it would look like this. There are still some diagnostic tools. See the upturned bill? That's a red-throated loon. The common loons, they're more straight ahead. Their bills are also heavier. See the red eyes? They're a smaller loon. This gray and black and white pattern, it can be hard to distinguish from far away. And some people have the gift of like through fog and like with sound distracting in the background, they can see without binoculars, oh, that's a Pacific loon, that's a red-throated loon, like flying through the air. I'm like, how do you know, right? There's 11,000 plus species of birds in the world. That alone, I think, is awe-inspiring. And what I like about this is that there is no way, it is not possible for any of us to know everything about all the birds. And even if somebody was just some gifted genius who could identify every single bird, it's all interconnected, right? We have to look at the whole ecology of things. We've got migratory patterns. We've got climate change disrupting said migratory patterns and behavior. You know what our state bird is? Black-capped chickadee, right? If climate change continues, no more chickadees in Massachusetts. That'd be weird, right? That'd be sad. There's a lot of things that might hook someone to go, oh, how can we save the birds? These are the maps that in the Sibley Guide, and if you ever use the Merlin Bird ID app, which I highly recommend, it's free, we'll show you the area where, this is where the red-throated loon will breed up in the orange. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, I'm never going to see one. They will migrate down to like the Great Lakes areas and up parts of southern Canada and northern Maine and Vermont. And then in the blue is where they will spend the winter. So the majority of the time, the majority of their lives, they're coastal. So they switch from being in freshwater up in these lakes in the Arctic, right? Fly all the way down, not just in one trip. And by the way, did you know loons don't have hollow bones like other birds? Isn't that amazing? So you ever seen a loon land or take off? It's not very graceful. They need a runway because they have more weight to carry and to take off. But they're incredible divers and swimmers too. So this is where I saw my red-throated loon. I have seen one in the Berkshires. They will stop over in fresh bodies of water, both as a harbinger of spring as they're heading north or coming back in the fall. If you know where Lake Noda is in Pittsfield, you might find one there. It's a deeper lake, so some of those diving birds and ducks and loons will prefer those rather than a shallower stream or river or something like that. So again, spark birds, different ones for different points of my life. I was a big osprey fan too. Who doesn't love an osprey, right? Those will come through here too. So I've had many. Sometimes people use the phrase nemesis bird. Oh, it's like the opposite of spark bird. Usually they're referring to a bird that eludes you. It's one I've been looking for my whole life. It's my white whale, right? I think it's fun. I don't really like it because it makes them look like a bad guy, you know, like this beautiful common yellowthroat with its mask, like it's going to rob a little warbler bank or something like that. Nemesis bird, birding gives me hope. So when I go out, even if in the back of my mind I'm like, well, it would be really nice to see this, most of the time I'm going to fail. Right? It's almost like I'm a baseball player. I'm going to strike out more than I hit. But what that gives me is hope that maybe the next time I'll find something. And again, you never know what you'll find. I did not come up here thinking I would see a female goldeneye and get a picture of the northern pintail on my cell phone, but I did. And therefore, my mindfulness says, express some gratitude. Be grateful. This bird that is normally way, way, way far from here is right here, right now. And it's kind of like meeting a celebrity, I think. It's like, oh my gosh, I've heard about you. I've seen you, but you can't get too close, no autographs or anything like that. So gratitude is a huge part of mindful birding. And so I would rather congratulate the bird. Well done. I don't want to get too close to you. Well done for eluding me. I'm going to keep looking for you. I'm going to keep my eyes and ears out. And it gives me hope. And I think there's a shortage of hope in this world now. So, what exactly is mindful birding? Again, there's no one way to bird, and there's no one way to mindful bird, but there are some general agreed upon points. I will share with you what is sort of universal and maybe what I've tweaked a little bit myself. Number one, there's an intentional slowing down. If you are doing like anybody ever done a Christmas bird count? Like you try to find as many birds as possible in one day? Yeah. That's not the best conditions for mindful birding, and it's actually really important, right? We can all be community scientists and report data back to the scientists who are making those maps and looking at data about, you know, are these birds heading more north because they need more cooler climates because of climate change? But whenever possible, and if you've never tried it, try to slow down. Slow down to an almost uncomfortable level where you just like, you've heard of a sit spot? Just sit. Don't go for a hike. Or go for a hike and sit in one spot for longer than you might normally and see what happens. Sometimes you can wait for the birds to come to you. rather than chasing them, and it's a whole other experience. Not to mention, when we go through the woods, we can kind of disrupt the wildlife a little bit, right? If I'm stomping in there like an elephant, especially in the spring, like the soundscape might take another half an hour to really get back to what it was if I'm quiet. And we'd mentioned the chickadee before, right? That chickadee-dee-dee-dee, that alarm, that's an alarm sound. Sometimes they could be alarming others about you. But you might notice, if you slow down, that the less Ds they sing out, the less of a concern it is, and then they'll turn off the chickadee part and they just go, sweetie, like that. And that means they're comfortable. So if you're ever in the presence of a chickadee doing that, it trusts you. So I'm focusing on detailed observation, right? Like that picture of that dark-eyed junco or that close-up of the red-throated loon, I feel like I could stare at it for a long time. Think about an artist, right? Or a scientist looking at something under a microscope. Slow down, look at the feathers, right? Start to wonder about things. Wondering, to me, is more important than actual knowledge. I'm going to say that again. Wondering is more important than knowledge. It leads to more knowledge. I don't know about you, but the older I get, I feel like the less I know because I keep opening new doors. And I like that. I don't ever want to think that I know everything. So when I go out birding, I love to bird with people who aren't there to just show off everything they know. They're there to wonder with me. And there's no bad questions, right? What someone else wonders, if they share that with me, I'll be like, oh, that's so cool. I never really thought of it like that. It helps open up my awareness. So I'm going to take stock of how I feel before I've started birding. Oftentimes, when I am facilitating an outing, I will ask this question to the group, because one of the secrets about mindful birding is it's actually not just about the birds, it's about the people. And often, people will use adjectives like, oh, I'm frazzled, I'm feeling rushed, I'm stressed about work, I'm kind of transitioning out of that, that kind of thing. And then in the middle, maybe we check in and see how are you feeling while you're birding. As I will show in a slide or two, there's a lot of science behind mental and physical benefits of being not just outdoors, not just in the presence of birds, but in the presence of birds singing. Focusing on quality over quantity. I never want to set myself up or anyone else for any kind of disappointment, right? Sometimes people will go out and have a target bird, meaning I'm going to go find this bird. And again, there is a place for that. It does need to be done sometimes. But if I'm going to strike out more often than I'm going to get a hit, I could walk away disappointed. And if I'm going for my health and I leave grumpy, kind of what's the point, right? That's my thing. But if I am lucky to see a rarer bird or something that's a lifer for me, a bird I haven't seen, I will take a moment to be like, wow, that was really exhilarating. I'm really grateful that that happened. This is not something that happens every day. But be warned, if you haven't experienced this yet, it can be incredibly addictive. You're like, well, if I found this, I can certainly find this, right? And then you're that obsessed birder, and you wonder why you bird alone. Yeah. So I'm also questioning and exploring my relationship with nature and reminding myself that it is not separate from me, nor am I from it, right? I am part of nature. I'm an animal. We are animals. I'm being okay with unanswered questions. Again, it's that curiosity. There's no way I can answer every question when I'm facilitating something, but I will make somebody feel good for asking a really good question. Professors know that, right? Questions are the best. And really indulging in that wow factor. And that could be for any reason, for any bird. And if you stare at a robin for long enough, you'll probably see something pretty amazing. And then at the end, I'm going to check in with myself and with others. How do I feel at the end? Is there anything different from what it was at the beginning or the middle? And again, there's no guarantees. There's no right or wrong answer. Someone might be like, I'm still grumpy, but maybe 20% less. I'm like, all right, that's progress, right? Very often, though, there's a pretty dramatic change, especially if you're mindful, you're aware of it, you're intentional about it. So, there's a lot of articles, if you're ever interested in Googling this, about birding and mental health, Psychology Today, not surprisingly, an Audubon publication, and even the National Library of Medicine. Now, I'm going to suggest that mindfulness can also extend our awareness beyond our birds, beyond maybe what my heart rate is going at, or my blood pressure, or cortisol levels. And then sometimes I'll go like, Audubon, who was that guy? Right? And sometimes you learn about people in the past, you're like, ooh, I'm not so sure about that. And there's, by the way, a lot of Audubon societies that are changing their names for that very reason. So there's a former Audubon organizations in New York City who are like now the New York City Bird Alliance. It's about the birds. So 6 minutes sometimes is all it takes to lower heart rate, blood pressure, being in the presence of birds, specifically if they're singing. Now, it is good to know that not all birds sing, not all birds sing at all times, and there are certain times of the year where they're going to be singing certain things. So spring migration, which we're all looking forward to, is the ultimate time for birds singing. Birds also have calls, so they're not the same thing. So the chickadee-dee-dee-dee, it's not really a melodic song, right? So sometimes things are classified as songs, sometimes they're calls. When you hear a blue jay scream, it's usually more of a call. But if you're around them singing, take a notice how you feel. Nobody fully understands why, but there is some suggestion that when birds are singing, it means they feel safe. And perhaps something in our sort of ancestral DNA recognizes that, and therefore we feel safe too. I feel really peaceful right here, right? For some people, it's terrorizing to think of the thought of being alone in the forest, and other people are like, get me there as soon as possible, right? But being around birds for just a little bit can change you. So the science of awe, this is Dr. Keltner. Has anybody ever heard of him before? He literally wrote a book called Awe. I highly recommend it. Now, he didn't invent anything. What I like about what he did, and this is the guest of the podcast I was listening to while having that running high after being in awe about the red-throated loon. He is a social psychologist at the University of Berkeley in California, and he and his team interviewed 2,000 people from around the world, all walks of life, indigenous people, people in urban settings, and everything in between on all continents, to find out what is it about awe that we all could benefit from in our lives. It's a huge question. And he was able to boil them down. It's pretty amazing. And we'll see which ones you relate to. And I'm curious if you can also recognize how these connect to birding. This is his definition of awe. Awe is the emotion we experience when we encounter vast mysteries that we don't understand. So you know the expression you're saying like, oh, my jaw was on the floor, right? There's some truth to that. When we are really amazed or even appalled by something, our mouths will open. But sometimes, have you ever noticed when you're like listening to something really good and you're soaking it in, your mouth is open and you're like, oh, I'm like almost drooling, right? Kids will do this too when they're really listening. They're literally taking it in. It's almost like they're consuming it. Notice that sometimes too. And, I might be in awe. So he boiled this down to the 8 wonders of life. Does anybody know where this is, by the way? Yosemite, yeah. You come out of a tunnel and that's what you see. And I've been there and it actually looks like that. It's amazing. It's awe-inspiring. So, the first thing from the 2,000 interviewed people that they all agreed upon that we need in our lives is being in nature. Nature is like possibly the number one awe-inspiring thing. That could also extend to there are people who study the universe who, I listened to this one interview and she said, I'm someone who has really high anxiety. When I study the stars, it makes me feel less important in a good way. The world or the universe is not on my shoulders, right? Then what is my place in that? Spirituality is the other thing. Can you believe it? Right? Now that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Kind of like birding, there's no one way to be spiritual. But these things are all interconnected. Music. All right, now when we're thinking of birds, are you with me so far? Right? Kind of obvious. Music, bird song, we just talked about, improving mental and physical health. Visual design. That could be El Capitan and Yosemite National Park. It could be the human body. It could be a scarlet tanager and its breeding plumage. Wow, that is a beautiful bird, right? Big ideas. That almost sounds like a kindergartner's suggestion, right? But I think it's simple for a reason. Big ideas could be something like artificial intelligence. It could be we look up at the stars and what we see is not actually there because the star blew up. It's just that light travels at this certain speed, and what we're seeing now is the past. What? That's a big idea. Life and death. Sometimes awe can involve loss or being scared or being confused. If you've ever had a close one in your life pass away, it could even be a pet. It's devastating, and it's also something that you'll just keep in your heart forever. And it's just the cycle of life and death, right? And when you think about birds, there is this incredible rhythm to their existence. And if I ever feel personally or professionally stuck, I look to the birds. I look to their life cycle. If I'm feeling pouty, I go out and they're just, they're foraging, or they're flying south or flying north, or trying to claim their territory, or trying to build a really cool nest for a potential mate. They are continuing on. That's what they're best at. And I can find a lot of inspiration in that. This is my favorite aspect of awe. Collective effervescence. Isn't that a beautiful term? So this is a coined term by someone from over 100 years ago that Dr. Keltner is repurposing this. It's when people are doing things together and sometimes in unison. So it could be rocking out with Bad Bunny at the Super Bowl, right? Everyone's singing along. Everyone's has a lighter up and they're singing Freebird or whatever it is. It could be people doing a drum circle together. It could be just walking silently. It could be cheering for your favorite team. In birding, I believe there is a collective effervescence, and I actually have an image of that. But think about it. What are we doing when we're all looking at one bird? Binoculars are up, our attention is all in one way, and there's sort of a ritual to that. And there's often audible gasps that come out of the birders. That is my favorite part, because your joy is my joy. Even if I saw that bird 5 minutes ago, now I'm in the presence and I get to witness and share in your discovery of it, and boy, is it awesome. And maybe I didn't see it 5 minutes ago and they got to point it out to me. Thank you. Collective effervescence. And then there's moral beauty. So we can be in awe of people's skills or creatures' skills and what they're contributing to the greater good. So that could be a professor that's completely changed your life, right? It could be that spark bird. It could be a shared experience on a birding outing, or just a quiet moment by yourself too. This is nothing new, right? We're finding new ways to articulate it, awe, but it's always been around, and it's never going to go away. And I'm going to say something maybe slightly edgy here. We need to decolonize birding. Birding traditionally has been a bunch of people that look like me, but usually a little bit older, and maybe wearing more beige, right? Birding is for everyone. Being outdoors is for everyone. Most birds are often named after the male birds in their breeding plumage, right? Like scarlet tanager, I mentioned before. It's a striking color, and it's definitely an easier way to identify it in the field than if you said, go find a young female scarlet tanager. Like, are they scarlet? No, good luck. But that means that 50% of bird populations have not been given the same attention. There's a whole movement about digging deeper into what the female birds are up to. It used to be thought that female birds never ever sing. That's just not true. It's amazing how much of a swing and a miss that was in the science community. So there's an organization called Galbatross. How cool of a name is that? That is fully dedicated to exploring only female birds. And we're learning a lot. Anybody read Braiding Sweetgrass before? Robin Wall Kimmerer, right? Hero of our time. We're so lucky to be alive at the same time as her. She gives me hope because in our relationship with nature, as human beings in our history of it, this is where I said I'd go out, right? She has hope for humankind because in the history of our existence, we have lived far longer in harmony with nature than how we live today. It's kind of like our consumerism, capitalism world. It's like a blink of an eye in the whole scope of our human existence. So our ancestors figured out how to live in harmony, and there are still people living in harmony today. There are still indigenous communities who have an incredible amount, a wealth of wisdom that we can learn from. There she is. Did anybody happen to see her speak at Williams last year? Wasn't that so good? I mean, my jaw was on the floor the whole time. So spirituality, this is a lovely definition, I think, because I think that it can get a little bit muddy for people. A quality that goes beyond religious affiliation, that strives for inspiration, reverence, awe, meaning, and purpose, even in those who do not believe in God. The spiritual dimension tries to be in harmony with the universe, strives for answers about the infinite, and comes essentially into focus in times of emotional stress, physical and mental illness, loss, bereavement, and death. The people who wrote this are pioneers in nursing care. So they talk about life and death, right? Spirituality. Spirituality is not exclusively under duress, but that's when we start to go, God, sorry, I haven't talked to you in a while, but I really need your help right now. Or whatever the universe you want to talk to. Something bigger, something mysterious, right? Help me out here. So community plus ritual plus simultaneity is collective effervescence. This is an actual moment of it. Thank goodness someone took this picture. This is from Parsons Marsh, south of here in Lenox. An amazing, amazing birding spot, especially in the spring and fall. It's a pretty accessible route. We had a gentleman here in a wheelchair here, and this was a moment, this was not a posed thing. I was actually at the other end, and I had said before, if anyone at any time sees or hears something or senses something, and I'm, not noticing it, please point it out. Somebody else in the group found a ruby-throated hummingbird, our most populous local hummingbird visitor in the spring and fall and summer. And it was up on this tree, and it had just stopped and perched on a dead tree. And everybody gasped, and there was like all these sounds like, "Aw," and stuff like that, that sound that we make when we see a cute puppy or a bird or a kid or something like that. And we were just kind of stuck like this for a while. And I was just like, let's stay here. Like, it reminded me to slow down too. It was amazing, and I was so proud and grateful that I was not the one that spotted it, right? People's senses were really open. And to think I could have walked right past it. So in this recurring theme of reciprocity, Robin Wall Kimmerer says, paying attention is a form of reciprocity with the living world, receiving the gifts with open eyes and open heart. So just noticing is a great place to start. So what if I said to you, and when we talk about indigenous wisdom, this is my attempt at explaining that maybe it's not as far away as it might feel. What if I said to you, this is something I'd actually like to do. I hope to take a canoe trip down the Housatonic River from Massachusetts to Connecticut, and along the way, I'm hoping to see chipmunks, maybe a skunk, a coyote, a raccoon, an opossum, or if I'm really lucky, a moose, and then I'll take a break and take a nap in a hammock. How many indigenous words are in that sentence, do you think? This many, right? We're in Massachusetts. It's an indigenous word. Whose land are we on? Mohican, yeah. Mohawks are up in upstate New York, was very close by too, depending on what timeline you look at too, yeah. So Mohican, people of the waters that are never still. This time of year, the waters are almost still, even the moving parts, the rivers, frozen over, right? Almost. What are those waters? Housatonic, the Hoosic, the Hudson, the 3 H's, other things like that. So I go in with this mindset sometimes when I'm birding. And I think about what would it be like, what was it like to have been a Mohican person on this land? And what would my relationship with nature be? How would it be different from now? And I keep coming back to, it's much more intertwined than it is now. We are nature. And the point of birding and being in nature and being alive really is joy. This is it. You know who that is? Very good. A male Blackburnian warbler. They will come in the spring. They're beautiful. Joyous, if you ever see one. Black vulture. Kind of the opposite of a Blackburnian, right? But we need them. We thank them for picking up the detritus that would make everything else sick. By the way, I live in Great Barrington, about an hour south of here. If you ever want to see a black vulture, I can show you about 60 on any given day. They are, if you've ever been by the Mahawi Theater down there, by Town Hall, they are just roosting in the trees, and then they fly up in their little kettles, and they come back to the tree. Anybody know who that is? You'd have to go to the shoreline to see that. Close. You are close. It's a willet. Yeah. They're all around Cape Cod in the summer, if you get to see. And if you ever get a chance to see a baby willet, oh my gosh, the sounds you will make. This is a hard one. Anybody know this? Yeah? Oh, you are so close. It is a scoter. Well done. There's another clue that I'll tell you which one it is, though. Yeah, Veronica? It is a white-winged scoter. That's the white-winged. And it's a female, too. I love a surf scoter, too. Man, I wish I had pictures of everything now. Joy, 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 joy. This is the point, right? If you're out birding and you're not feeling it, take a different approach. So, really quick question before we wrap things up here. In this area of Massachusetts, so not the ocean, what is a bird that you might associate with water, fresh water, specifically a pond or a lake or even something boggy. What, is there a bird that you think of that maybe you see or hear when you go there, especially certain times of year? Heron is a great one, totally, yeah. A heron, yeah, a great blue heron. Yeah, but are the herons usually noisy? No, what's a noisy one? Loons can be noisy, but they're usually just going to be passing through. What are you going to say? Kingfisher's good too. What about this guy? What is that? Yeah, male red-winged blackbird. And in the next few weeks, en masse, they will arrive. They arrive before the females. This is the female. She looks like a big sparrow almost. But again, red-winged blackbird, right? This is a red-winged blackbird on the right. They both are. But what I wonder is, if I were a Mohican person 1,000 years ago walking through what we now call Adams, and I was in a new area that I was not familiar with, and I was going maybe from one part of my family to another, and I needed to get water to drink, but I didn't know where I was. If I heard their conqueree sound, I would know water is close by. What if my relationship to birds was literally life or death, right? We take for granted, we walk by birds all the time, even if it's a house sparrow. I never want to say it's just a house sparrow, whatever. All birds are amazing. But there was a time where we relied on, oh, that raven could be telling me something. That circling vulture could be telling me something. Just the other day, both northern cardinals and mourning doves changed their song on the same day as a harbinger of spring. That Star Wars kind of like pew, pew, pew that a cardinal makes wasn't doing that earlier in the winter. That coo from doves wasn't doing that during the winter. So they're here, but their behavior changes now. When you notice those things, you start noticing more and more and more. I would argue that birding makes you better at international relations. Because as Dr. J. Drew Lanham says, the great birder and poet, birds stitch the world together, right? Every animal to some degree moves because they need to get to other resources in other areas. This is anybody know? Yeah? Wood thrush. Ding, ding, ding. You're on fire. So wood thrush is arguably one of the most beautiful sounding birds in our area. Will come up in the spring. We will hear them deep in the forest throughout the summer. You might not ever see one. Remember this, there is a song that they sing that sounds like Vanna White turning over a letter on the Wheel of Fortune. Dun, 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 like that. I'm like, doesn't Wheel of Fortune owe royalties to the wood thrush? So again, in the orange, that's where they are in the spring and summer. International relations makes me think, okay, so maybe that bird that was in my yard who was just music to my ears is in Costa Rica right now. I'm trying to take care of the forests here in Massachusetts, working with conservation organizations like Berkshire Natural Resources Council, and we're doing pretty well. Mass Audubon, things like that. But in Costa Rica, there's some serious deforesting going on. So it's possible that bird that I enjoyed every day last year might not come back. So birds don't know borders. They're going to fly from my feeder to my neighbor's feeder. There's no property line for a bird. They go to where they need, where their resources are. Maybe I'm going to be a little bit more particular about where I get my coffee from. And sometimes they will say, in addition to shade-grown, organic, fair trade, worker-friendly, they'll say bird-friendly coffee. So supply and demand, keep that in mind. In case you don't know. Oops. Do we have sound coming from here or no? Let's see. Yeah, beautiful. And we're just coming back to the backyard birds again, right? We've got our black-capped chickadee friend. There are other chickadees in the country, but this is the one that's up here. Go ahead and call it out if you know it. Tufted titmouse. Dark-eyed junco again. Blue jay. You know there's people that have never seen a blue jay because blue jays don't live everywhere, and they would kill to see a blue jay. Right? It's a stunning bird. I mean, look at it. Let's not take it for granted. Female, right? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. When you look at the red coming from the female too, like, wow, gorgeous. Yeah, the American robin. That was named after the European robin that doesn't look that much like it. That's a little bit of the decolonizing, like, what were they thinking, right? So biodiversity is the variety of life. One of my missions in life is to connect the dots between our appreciation for nature and appreciation for the diversity of humans, right? Monocropping doesn't work for very long, right? Farmers have learned to rotate their crops, and if they just have corn year after year after year, what happens? Yeah, the topsoil is just like gone. So we actually need people who look and think and act differently than we do, right? We need each other, internationally, locally, everything like that. Biodiversity does not just be like, oh, out there in the forest. No, it's us in this room right now, too. There are blind birders, right? Birding is for everyone. This woman here has a seeing eye dog, and she has a list of birds that she's listening for. So when we're creating trails and things like that and thinking about making birding more accessible, we have to think of everybody. And if we take care of her, I, as a seeing person, will be just fine. There's no one way to bird, right? Check this out. We've got the pictograph from Merlin Bird ID. So if somebody is a deaf birder, they can look at the shape of the sound. An eastern towhee, with their permission, you could outline them and drink your tea. Drink your tea. It goes down and it goes up. So we've got BIPOC birders, we have queer birders. There are amazing black birders who have started their own groups with the mission of getting more BIPOC people out there. And one of my favorite podcasts comes from two black birders called the Bird Joy podcast. It's the best. I highly, highly recommend it. That's Christian Cooper down there, who you might have heard about in the news a few years ago. A woman called the cops on him and claimed that he was harassing her and he was birding. He did not let that bother her. He still goes to the same spot. He birds in Central Park all the time. He's spoken with local bird clubs up here. Amazing guy. Speaking of local birding, the Hoffmann Bird Club is a really old birding club in the Berkshires. Really cheap to join, great guests, free outings. You can even come on the outings if you're not a member. So I highly recommend checking that out. The Berkshire Bird Observatory, what Veronica used to work at, does amazing stuff. They have a bird banding station, and if you're kind and you ask, you can come and see the birds and maybe even hold one. And they do saw-whet owl banding in the fall. If you've never seen a northern saw-whet owl, you will not believe how impossibly cute this creature is. It's as if Hollywood asked the ghost of Jim Henson to create the most adorable thing imaginable. And there they are. And there's me. So I lead birding outings around the county and beyond. I'd love for you to come join me sometime. Yeah, and Birdability is a great organization for accessible birding, if that's something you're interested in learning about one way or another. Access birding, same thing. Birdability has a great website too, so you can just think about if you want to invite people along, consider these things. Do they have bathrooms? Is it steep? Is it flat? Are there places that somebody could hold on to? Are there places somebody could sit down and take a break, right? Especially when you're going with a group. And go ahead and get grandma to come out with you too. She might have needs that you don't also. Black Birders Week is really fascinating. There's a lot of podcasts affiliated with that. It'll come up in 2026. This is the Bird Joy podcast that I recommend. It's so fun, it's so informative, and it's just filled with laughs. They have great, great guests. And the Mindful Birding Network is a really wonderful organization too. You can join it for free. They also have a podcast. They have periodical seasonal meetings where people will share poetry, observations, and there's literally people coming in on Zoom from around the world. It's really wonderful. So that is that. If you're interested in knowing more, you can follow me on Instagram. I post about this stuff all the time. There's a green heron. If you have any questions, you can email me too. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.